A different world with its own rules.
I know it will be hard when I have the baby and they take it from me. I think about it almost every night.
Their life is in somebody else's hands.
If you don't keep water, you don't have water for the day.
All this behind bars. Gangs. Violence. Drugs. Harassment. A daily survival of the fittest. In the toughest prisons in the world. Mandaluyong City in the Greater Manila area. Roughly 25% of the inhabitants of the Philippines live in poverty. Those without money end up in the slums. Men as well as women. The fates of many end in crime. The most common crimes: fraud, prostitution, and drugs. Sooner or later, female offenders who get caught end up here. The Correctional Institution for Women, or CIW for short. It's the oldest and largest women's prison in the Philippines, founded in 1931. Designed for 1,000 PDLs, persons deprived of liberty, today there are about 3 times as many. Prisoners range from petty criminals to drug dealers, from murderers to gang members. The guards are outnumbered. Your best bet at keeping prisoners under control? Strict rules that everyone must adhere to.
In the morning, we have to wake up all at 5:30. No one is allowed to lay down after that. Then we will have our morning prayer. After morning prayer, we will be allowed to have a shower for 10 minutes.
Over and over again, checks to ensure no one has managed to escape. 5 times a day.
149, 150, 151, 152.
100% security? Impossible.
This is a sharp object, and this hammer can be used to smash someone's head during a brawl, so we need to confiscate this screwdriver and hammer.
Tools, gas canisters, knives, all potentially lethal weapons. In addition, new female offenders are admitted here every day. Like Rowena Okat, who was convicted of child abuse. To ensure that new prisoners don't cause a problem, the guards focus on maximum de-escalation from the start.
Stay away from gossip and from fighting with others. And because we're all just human, you will meet many people whose values and ways are different from yours. There are mean people. Some are okay. You should just avoid trouble for your own sake. Just remember this. You are not allowed to borrow money because it's the root of all problems.
The standard registration procedure follows. Besides the normal paperwork, the officers document scars and tattoos, as well as the weight and health status of the new arrivals. From now on, Rowena's fate is in the hands of the CIW.
I feel nothing. That's all I feel. Yeah, it's my first time.
Her sentence, 6 years, 8 months, and 1 day. By the end of her imprisonment, the guards will have reduced Rowena's personal belongings to an absolute minimum.
This is not allowed inside because they will be given things for sleeping in there. Also, this bedsheet has got prints all over it. This is prohibited. What we provide is all that is allowed, so we know which items belong to the Correctional Institute. It helps to avoid items from the outside.
From now on, an entire life here fits into a 50-liter box.
When they enter, they are provided with a towel, basic shorts, slippers, as well as a t-shirt. Just basics like soap, toothpaste for their teeth. And then these are the shoes we provide. They are not allowed to use things that were not provided by the Correctional Institute.
Time to go into the oldest and largest women's prison in the Philippines. Rowena will be locked away with over 1,000 others. The number of guards who could intervene in an emergency here is reduced to a minimum. Now, she is finally behind bars. The final check, not in a separate room alone with the guards, but under the watchful eyes of the other PDLs. Before going in, there's one last check. From now on, Rowena will have to come to terms with everything in here. Murderers, gang members, and countless checks. The prison consists of 3 security areas. The minimum security camp houses petty criminals. The medium security camp, medium offenders. And in the largest block, the maximum security camp, are the felons. Rowena will serve time there. The bedrooms and living quarters, the so-called dorms, are spread over several buildings. Among them are also so-called high-value PDLs. A huge compound full of hardened criminals. The time has come. Again, checks to ensure Rowena has no contraband on her. Then, she enters the jail. A jail where just a few dozen correction officers watch over several thousand prisoners. Who roam freely during the day. The best possible control measure, 1 thorough check per hour. Before newcomers like Rowena are allowed to join the other prisoners, however, they first receive special treatment. And that means quarantine. This is to ensure that they don't spread diseases. From now on, each dorm is controlled by a so-called dorm in charge, or DIC for short. They are prisoners themselves, but have special rights. If the situation calls for it, they are even allowed to punish fellow prisoners who break the rules. Rowena experiences all this for the first time in her life, and she has no idea who she can trust. The furnishings of the quarantine cell, sparse. With peak temperatures of up to 35 degrees Celsius, fans are little help. Nor will the simple cots help get you through the night. But right now, the one person Rowena is thinking about most is her child.
I have a child waiting for me. And nobody is sending her to school now. That's why I started working as a housemaid in the first place. To be able to send my child to school. We're just poor people. My husband is unemployed. It hurts. What happened to me really hurts. I really didn't do the crime they're accusing me of. I didn't expect this would happen to me. Because I'm a good mother. I'm a good housekeeper. I worked for a family for 4 years. I took care of their children. But it was someone else who complained about me. It was our neighbor. There's been a dispute since way back between our neighbor's family and my husband. That's why this happened to me.
Guilty or innocent? It's a question the guards never have to worry about.
It is normal for those PDL committed here to say that they are innocent. It is normal for them to get emotional, but they are not here for nothing. They need to face the consequences of the crimes they committed.
Everyone is equal before the law, no matter where in the world they are serving time and what rules apply there. After isolation, a very different world awaits Rowena. The prisoners of the Philippines Correctional Institution for Women are released, so to speak, into the actual prison, into a world all its own, with its own set of rules, and full of potential female offenders. During the day, even in the high security wing, they are all allowed to move around freely. Who was convicted of what? The other PDLs here haven't got a clue. No matter in which tract, building, which secluded corner, everything is freely accessible. The only way to check that everyone is still there every day. Constant counting.
35, 36, 37, 30, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44.
The officers count all the prisoners 5 times a day. It's the only way they can keep track of everything.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 54.
Nine in the kitchen, 1 D-cell.
Kitchen and 1 D-cell.
D-cell. Then 2 in squad.
Disciplinary cell?
Yes. Then in the kitchen and also squad.
As soon as even a single prisoner is missing, The guards follow a clear protocol.
So we make a report immediately, and then we pass it on to our officer of the day. Then the officer of the day will report this to our superior officer. We will also do a recount until we find where she's gone. She might just be somewhere in the area. If she's not found within 24 hours, then we declare the PDL missing.
The disappearance of a PDL, a person deprived of liberty, would be a disaster for the prison. But there's one thing the guards also fear: an uprising, even when everything seems peaceful. There are over 3,000 PDLs throughout the entire prison, under the control of just 20 guards per shift. It's a daily challenge. The so-called locator charts are most important for orientation to determine who is where. They hang outside each dorm. Each prisoner has to attach a specially made tag to the chart. It shows where they are supposedly located. Whether this is true or not, nobody really knows. Because keeping the many buildings under constant control is literally impossible. The maximum security camp alone covers approximately 10,000 square meters. And largely resembles a self-governing city. The area is gigantic. And, like in the outside world, money rules here, among other things. There are countless shops where you can buy almost anything, from bananas to fish to snacks. The prison allows each prisoner personal possessions worth up to 2,000 Philippine pesos in cash, roughly 35 euros. Everything beyond that is managed like a bank by the prison. Prices are roughly the same as on the outside, sometimes a little higher, and the selection is surprisingly large. Besides fresh vegetables and sweets, there are also canned goods, ice cream, and hygiene products. Even fresh baked goods. All this in one of the toughest women's prisons in the world. In which everyone struggles every single day to see how big a piece of the pie they can get. It doesn't matter if you were born in the Philippines or abroad. Like 32-year-old Debbie. The South African has been in prison for 9 years now for drug smuggling, more precisely, for cocaine. There is one thing she does above all: play by the rules.
In the morning, we have to wake up all at 5:30. No one is allowed to lay down after that. Then we will have our morning prayer. After morning prayer, we will be allowed to have a shower for 10 minutes. And then we will have a TC morning meeting. It's like a therapeutic meeting where we will talk about the problems in the dorm, and we will have newscasting, people who will have news reports, and then after that, we will have counting.
Even at night, Debbie does not have a single quiet moment. She has to share her bed with a stranger.
We have to move slow to respect one another also when sleeping. Especially like for me, I'm a foreigner. I'm very tall, more bigger than my partner next to me. So I think I'm taking most of the space on the bed. But it's hard, especially because it's a very small space. Example, for the bed, when we sleep, half of the bed is mine and half of the bed is hers. In the beginning, it's very hard to accept because I'm used to sleeping in my own position, sleeping freely. But now I had to get used to sleeping with someone and to have my space limited.
The prison has been overcrowded for a long time, although the area is huge. More than 3 times as many women live in the numerous wings as originally planned. Those who aren't lucky enough to get a bed sleep on the floor. There are, however, privileged PDLs who get a single bed, the elderly, the sick, and prisoners in management positions. Often there is not even enough space for personal belongings. They are stacked up in boxes, in the hallway, and under the beds. Inside, there'll be precious memories of the family and everything else one needs to survive.
In my box, I will have an extra blanket, then my t-shirts and some sandals and towels. And then apart from the box, we are allowed to have a shower basket, which is always under my bed. Everything has to fit in there. It's hard because if it doesn't fit, either you have to give it away or you have to find a way to push it inside. Outside, I'm used to having a very comfortable life. I have my own room, I have my storage area, a cupboard, a very big cupboard with enough space. And then now it's like it's so limited, a very small box, only 50 liters is the maximum because the space is occupied because we have so many PDLs. We are about 124 only in this dorm.
It's all part of daily life in the largest women's prison in the Philippines. And there are no exceptions. No matter what gender. Whether still in pre-trial custody or already convicted, the conditions are essentially the same. Those who have money make their lives as bearable as possible. Those who don't have to fight for clean drinking water. Select PDLs often help by supporting the guards. They have their own set of rules, partially made by the prisoners themselves. One reason for the situation, the war on drugs declared in 2016. The number of prisoners is growing, while their situation continues to deteriorate. Debbie, a South African, has had no privacy for many years, not even in the so-called CR, the comfort room.
This is what we call our CR. As you can see, it's very open. So my first experience when I was here is learn how to accept being watched when you go to CR. So the best thing that we always do when we will go to CR, we will get a towel or anything just to cover the area here. And then also when you go to CR, you have to get your own bucket of water so that you can flush the bowl. And then, yes, that's hard. Because as for me, because I'm foreigner, I'm used to not going to CR in front of anyone. So that was my most difficult part also being here. They don't allow toilet paper. You actually have to use water and soap to wash. it's very, very hard. Because obvious for me as a foreigner, I'm used to tissue, and then they tell me, no tissue, you use water. I'm like, I have to use my hand. For me, it felt so dirty because it's not normal. I only use my hand when I'm like showering. Don't tell me to use it for CR.
The Correctional Institution for Women strictly limits water use. Whether for drinking, washing, rinsing, or showering, water for this flows only a few hours a day. Peak daily temperatures often reach 35 degrees Celsius. The only way to get through this is by having a bottle for water.
You always have to have a water bottle, so in the morning you fill up your water bottle up until the afternoon when the water will be running again. It's hard. If you don't keep water, you don't have water for the day.
Access to water is limited. It's the first and one of the most important lessons one must learn here, even for new arrivals in the quarantine cell.
In the morning, the water comes at 5 a.m. Since there's many of you in here, you take your shower according to prison number. So take a shower early, because the water is turned off at 10 a.m. We need to clean up. Being dirty is forbidden. The women help each other with cleaning up. After all, it's for their own good. The garbage bin always has to have a lid, and the barrel should always have water inside it so that the toilet bowl will be clean. Be careful that the toilet bowl doesn't get clogged and stays clean.
Without water to flush, the feces in the toilets make for an almost unbearable stench. The situation is especially extreme in quarantine. Even when water is available, prisoners still need a kind of makeshift hose. Only the dorm in charge is able to provide it. Without her help, it would not be possible to flush toilets and fill drinking water containers. And even that is not always a given.
The water flow is weak, so we're checking where the problem is coming from. This hose has a lot of holes. A part of the hose must have gotten pinched somewhere outside. So I asked them to stop the water flow first and fix it before we attach the hose again. That's the problem of this hose.
For many, water is simply a matter of course. But for the women in here, it's a luxury item.
I expected that there would be a lot of us here, and especially because the number of prisoners always just keeps increasing. Each of us all just patiently saves water. That's why I thought of bringing a bucket here, so that I can save up water.
Almost as important is the supply of food, whether for new arrivals in quarantine or those outside. Prisoners prepare meals for everyone 3 times a day. For some, it is a chance to earn a few extra cents. But this also comes with much sweating. In sweltering tropical heat at temperatures of up to 35 degrees Celsius. The job in the kitchen, working hot woks and rice stoves, is one of the most strenuous in the prison. In 2 separate kitchens, they cook mainly fish, vegetables, and rice. It's the most important food staple. It's inexpensive and very filling. There is no canteen or dining room. Prisoners eat either in the dorms or in front of them. Only those who have a bit of money are able to add a bit more variety to mealtime. They buy extra foodstuffs in the numerous shops and cook it wherever there is room. What's bizarre about all this is that it simultaneously gives women in prison access to any number of potentially dangerous items, like matches, gas stoves, and, in the official kitchens, even knives. In the quarantine cell, stricter rules apply. There, you eat what the cell boss serves. Packaged meals in plastic bags, 3 times a day, and precisely portioned. That will have to do. Until finally, night falls. It's then that the most dangerous period of prison life begins. First, the guards ask everyone to group together. Then it's bedtime, time to file into the overcrowded sleeping quarters. It's a very delicate situation every day. Attacks on the guards or fights among prisoners. Everyone knows it can happen at any time. This is why male guards are allowed inside the walls at this time, to prevent the worst from happening. Finally, it's time to take a head count.
55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65.
The final one for the day. After that, everyone ends up under lock and key until dawn.
At night, when the surroundings are dark, it is possible they will attempt to hide in dark places. I don't remember the exact year it happened, because I'm also just new here. I wasn't here back then, but I heard that something like that happened before. But the PDL was recovered.
May nangyari na ganun. Pero na-recover naman po yung PDL.
The PDLs, persons deprived of liberty, cram into a very small space. In the morning, it's time to count again and make sure that everyone has survived the night unscathed. Whether it's longtime prisoners or newcomers, like Rowena.
I miss my family terribly. I can't imagine staying here for 6 years. But there's someone here from my hometown, in the Visayas region, so I'm not so scared anymore.
Rowena still does not know exactly what awaits her. She arrived here a day ago. And in 2 weeks, she will be transferred here for psychological tests. She will again be separated from the outside prison world for 60 days. Based on the results, the prison decides where a certain prisoner will sleep in the future. At the same time, PDLs must learn the rules of conduct that apply here at the Correctional Institution for Women. After more than 2 months of isolation, real life in the prison town begins in earnest, with numerous freedoms and constant tough controls. Every 2 to 4 weeks, a surprise search of the dorms takes place. The guards are mainly looking for alcohol and potential weapons, any sharp or pointed objects that could pose a danger. For this, men are again allowed in the women's prison. To crack down if there's an emergency.
Ayun nga po, ito po,
This is a
dahil nga
sharp
po,
object.
Sharp object siya. At itong hammer isa pwedeng gamitin.
And this hammer can be
Saka-sakaling
used to
magkaroon
smash
ng
someone's head
kabuluhan,
during a
magamit
brawl.
po ito. Pwedeng panghampas sa ulo.
So we need to confiscate this screwdriver and hammer.
Itong screwdriver, pati itong hammer.
The problem is some prisoners are allowed to own tools. They use them to help maintain the prison. Oftentimes, the situation becomes confusing.
They are authorized to use it in the dorm. For the maintenance, they do themselves. So they are allowed to have it, but at night, it is taken away by the DIC and kept and locked up so they do not hurt others.
Also because of the limited number of guards. In the end, the only thing to do is first confiscate anything that might appear suspicious. Owners of unauthorized weapons face numerous penalties. The Philippines Correctional Institution for Women offers certain freedoms, but those who do not abide by the rules are threatened with punishments, like cell confinement, punitive work, such as cleaning duty, or, in the worst case, complete isolation, and not just for a few hours. Often, up to a month, without a fan or a bed. Those who have served time here once usually don't end up here a second time.
In my 8 years imprisoned here, I have never hurt anyone. Maybe when you're tired, and then when we get on each other's nerves, you can't help hurting someone because sometimes we cannot control ourselves when we're tired, when we're hungry. That's why it's hard. That's why sometimes if I'm in a bad mood, I just try to avoid situations like getting on each other's nerves and fighting. You cannot imagine what we feel, like missing our families.
Complete isolation is very tough, but some prisoners have it even tougher, especially those prisoners going through a pregnancy. Not only do they lose their freedom, but also their own flesh and blood. like Christine, who may have to serve up to 12 years here. That means for 12 years, her child may have to grow up without her.
I know it will be hard when I have the baby and they take it from me. I think about it almost every night.
First, the families are asked if they will take care of the child. Quite often they refuse because they are too poor themselves. But fortunately, not in this case.
My youngest sister is taking the baby. I asked her to do this for me. She would rather not take the baby because she doesn't have much and life is hard enough. But she's doing it because I asked her to.
A relief. Otherwise, the baby would be in the custody of the authorities. Until the time comes, fellow PDLs help take care of pregnant prisoners and support them where they can.
It's not good that the baby will grow up here, especially the surrounding and the habitual mannerism of being a PDL. So the baby cannot see everything, only the orange and a PDL. So it's better the baby to reach out the family. If they want to get the baby at once from the hospital, it's better. But if not, the family is not yet capable, then what can I do? We let the baby stay here up to 6 months.
6 months in jail with a newborn baby. Unimaginable for many mothers. The prison does not provide baby food.
The baby is walking already, the baby is talking already. So, but when the time the baby is walking, talking, and say mama, it's very hard for the mother. Because she can see the baby is talking, they're already giving love and affection to both of them.
Christine desires one thing above all, for her child to do well and for her family to somehow manage to get by. Family. It's the one thing many in here miss the most, like Debbie. She's some 12,000 kilometers away from South Africa, her home.
The toughest part in here, I think, is to learn to, except like for foreigners, is to learn how to live without your family. You're so far from your family. And communication is very hard because of the time differences. And there's no other times for foreigners to call except the time that they are given. So if you can't call in those times, like for us in Africa, we are 6 hours behind of Philippines. There's no way to communicate with them. My family, the last time I spoke to them, my mother is still crying up until now. Because on October, reaching October, it will be 9 years. And they always tell me, why is it so long? They want me to come home. And I can't explain to them when I can come home, and I can't tell them enough how sorry I am for what I've done.
Until then, Debbie will serve out her sentence for smuggling 8.3 kilograms of cocaine. In the Philippines, that gets you 20 to 40 years. She doesn't know exactly when she'll get out.
My mistake was actually I loved the wrong man who taught me how to get involved in drugs. And as of plan of us, we were planning to use the money, if I didn't get arrested, use the money to get married. So what happened, he taught me that together with my modeling job, because he knows that I'm qualified for modeling, I will transfer drugs from Peru to Philippines. But when I was still in Africa, they promised me that I will not be caught. They already paid all the people, so it's safe. So he actually 100% guaranteed me. And then when I got here, no, there was nothing guaranteed. I was arrested on the spot.
Debbie is hoping the authorities will grant her request for an appeal ahead of time, and she will be allowed to return home as soon as possible.
I would do anything to turn back the time to not do it.
Until then, the only thing to do day after day is wash, eat, sleep, and persevere. In Manila's Correctional Institution for Women, the oldest and largest women's prison in the Philippines. Those who end up here have to accept that for many years, nothing will ever be the same again.
I'm just not used to my life being like this. Always in prison. I can't see my family anymore. 6 years is so long. I can't be with my family. I miss all of them.
They must come to terms with the fact that not only their own life will turn out differently than planned.
What I know is I will be here for a long time. And what I want is when I'm free to be with my children.
There's also the realization that hope is the only thing that keeps you going.
As my sentence is life, so the only thing I can actually do is keep on praying that God have mercy on me and that my appeal gets granted so that I can go home.
Home. Released from one of the toughest women's prisons in the world. Packed in cramped quarters with more than 3,000 persons deprived of liberty. Everyone here is hoping for the same thing. To once again experience the taste of freedom.
The South Cotabato jail in the Philippines. One of the most overcrowded prisons in the world. And as of today, my new home. They say I tried to kill a cashier. Now I am locked up with potential drug dealers, rapists, and murderers.
It weighs on me to be here. This is the first time I've been in a place like this terrible.
The crazy thing is, everyone in here hasn't even been sentenced yet. Some of them have been waiting decades for their hearings. And the power in here is not with the guards, but rather the inmates.
All I think about is how I'm going to get out of here. It's so hard.
My name is Roni Lodumagwit, and these are my first days in prison. The Philippines, for many a paradise, especially for the approximately 8 million tourists every year. But sometimes things get brutal here, especially in our cities. People are working hard, and in our slums, you find lots of drugs, like marijuana, crack, and meth. Growing up here still feels like normal life most of the time. At best, the kids leave most of it behind. And at worst, they end up in places like this. The island of Mindanao, in the south of the Philippines. Specifically, Coronadal City. South Cotabato Jail, a microcosm with its very own rules. Here we go, my first day in jail. It all starts with them carting the new arrivals to the gates in a plain police van. Routine, I guess. I hear the prison's already overcrowded. No entry for all those who are out there running free. For me, the only way, after a whole 35 years of life on the loose, they're only putting me in custody, but that doesn't make it any better.
Why are you here?
Stabbing.
What happened?
It was at the grocery store with a woman.
Attempted murder.
I'm allowed to take a few clothes, but not much more. But that's not so bad. What's worse is, at South Cotabato jail, many inmates wait months for their sentences, sometimes years, guilty or not. Drug dealer, murderer, none of that matters. Once you're in custody, you're in custody. All they can do is wait. And there they are. The other inmates.
He's staying here until his trial. How long that will take? We don't know either.
We don't know how long.
There follows a final check of the things I have with me, in front of more and more spectators. Already this is grueling. At least I get to keep some cash, even if I still have no idea what it could be used for in there. Philippine prisons also have a jail photo, although not quite as pretty as in the many American series that you see so on TV.
I'm extremely nervous. I don't know what's going to happen now. It's the first time for me.
All that's left are a few last moments when I'm at least halfway alone. It quickly becomes clear. There must be over 1,000 inmates in here. The inmates behind bars seem to have little space and no privacy. It's time. I'm stuck in a prison that's bursting at the seams. First, apparently, I have to go through some kind of initiation ritual. I don't know if the guards made it up or the inmates themselves, nor who appointed this inmate a barber, what crimes he may have committed out there. In any case, he knows why he's doing this. And that's more than just wanting a prison haircut.
We're quite the hotheads. I want everyone to see that he's the new guy. If he has enemies, then they don't recognize him right away. That's how it goes with everybody at first.
Enemies who might attack in prison. Seems pretty funny to my fellow inmates. Not to me. I can't do anything about that. I'm here and these are the rules. Then they demand that I pay for the haircut myself, with the little money I have. And there's something else I notice. A man. He stays in the background. They call him El Presidente. I guess he's an inmate himself, but with more power than anyone in here. I guess it's only a matter of time before I run into him. Now I'm going to my new home, my cell. The guard brings me in, along with another inmate, the so-called cell leader. After a few seconds, the guard disappears. From now on, the leader alone decides when I may go outside, when I eat, and where I sleep. In a 25 square meter cell with 69 inmates. Seems like every rookie ends up in here first, whether it's a drug dealer or a murderer, just like the stranger next to me. They say it's one of the most crowded and hottest cells in the whole joint. Then our fellow inmates explain the rules to us.
If I were you, I'd line up properly. Just wait. I'm going to explain to you the rules in this backwater jail now.
It's my first day in the South Cotabato jail in the Philippines. Most of the inmates are in just 2 buildings, built for about 600 inmates. Now there are about 3 times as many. Some seem to be sick. After that, the cellkeeper shows me my place.
Get up there. As the new guy, you sleep up there.
It's the stiffiest place you can imagine. Way up in the corner, that's where the heat builds up the most. Everything smells of sweat.
It's extremely tiring to sit here. It's my first time in a place like this. Terrible.
For newcomers, it means first. 15 days, almost the whole time in here. Until then, the best distraction is a crappy TV picture and a tiny fan to survive the extreme heat. I'm only allowed out in the daylight if my cell leader says it's okay, and only if he goes with me. There are strict rules, and the rules apparently make El Presidente. You notice it at the evening roll call, the big count. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, nearly 2,000 prisoners line up. There's no sign of the guards. They're being taken over by prisoners, probably henchmen of El Presidente. They have batons. The prison hierarchy is gradually becoming clearer. The guards stay out of as much as they can. They use inmates to do their jobs, and probably pay for it with privileges. Guards I detect only on prison walls. And towers, about 20, I guess. They have a good view of us from up there. Also, there are quite a few cameras in jail to monitor everything. Only when everyone is out do they come down to check that no one has escaped. Everyone has to line up, including me. Everybody's still here, and already the counting is over. Time to get a better view of the new home. About South Cotabato Jail, a tough-as-nails remand prison in the Philippines. I already know the two overcrowded buildings with a good 1,500 prisoners to some extent. I have also heard of the 150 or so inmates locked away. Some of them are in solitary confinement, the so-called punishment cells. The oldest inmates are in a separate building. So are the women. By now, I also know where the prison kitchen is. There's also a prayer room and the visitors area. Once a week, relatives and friends are allowed in. All this is monitored by the guards from their 5 towers. But what feels much more important right now? Food. I don't think there's any more today. The order is back to the cells. At the latest now it is clear. At the top are the guards. Below them, well, Presidente and his aides, the so-called marshals. Then come people like the cell guards. And at the bottom are rookies like me, Ronil. He's in custody for attempted murder. It's almost as bubbling in here as it is out there in freedom. Every drinking bottle can quickly become a weapon. Brawls, escape attempts, hunger strikes. There have probably been several of these in this prison. Today, at least, it remains quiet. And the first night falls. For the next 12 hours, all prisoners are locked in their cells. Now everyone is fighting for space, for enough air to breathe. There is no food or water in one of the most overcrowded prisons in the world. The guards have only one task left: lock up and leave the cell blocks. All I can do is try to sleep. It's incredibly hot. I can't breathe. It's claustrophobic. I don't know how I'm going to make it at all. As night falls, varts drift away. After all, it's not just normal life that's waiting out there. There's also a wife and 4 children. It all feels incredibly far away right now. The next morning, probably one of many to come. There are hundreds of thousands of cases still pending in the Philippines. I don't think anybody's gonna wake up in custody feeling better. The night was hot and long. I actually didn't sleep at all. I was thinking about my family the whole time. And that she's out there alone now, without me. And even if this sounds totally banal in comparison, already now the power is running out. It's time to eat something. But first it's roll call again. line up, kneel down, as each of the following days, months, maybe even for the next years. Waiting without knowing what is coming. This applies to all men and women. They're in the wing next door, mostly for drug abuse and prostitution. Sex tourists traveling to the Philippines like to book women as so-called girlfriends, often for a few weeks or months. Many women hope that a real relationship will develop from their time together, that the rich foreigner will lift them out of poverty, but this happens quite rarely. The hope of escaping poverty with quickly earned money then ends, among other things, here, in jail. After all, they cook their own food. They move about freely. Make jewelry. Do their laundry regularly. And above all, as far as I know, they don't have El Presidente, who controls everything around the clock. 9 o'clock in the morning, breakfast. My first full day in jail, I finally get to eat. Even if I can't choose what, at least my cell guard puts me pretty far up the line. It's a busy place. Everyone gets the same. A bowl of rice with vegetables. The next meal is supposed to be in 7 hours. I don't know if that's true. In any case, all this is already like an eternal cycle. At least I can move around freely during the meal break for longer than before. And I see that there are also male prisoners who cook their own food. How do they get that privilege? In any case, they may use sharp objects and knives. No one seems to ration their portions. Some of them even raise chickens. Of course, all of this is done under the supervision of the marshals. Seems like the inmates get their privileges from El Presidente. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to meet him in person. A little later, it's back to the cell and vegetate. Everything feels like a treadmill. And I haven't even been here a whole day yet. There is unfiltered groundwater to drink. Better than nothing. But we have average temperatures of 35 degrees Celsius in the Philippines. It's easy to catch diseases like tuberculosis. That's why the sick are locked up immediately. An epidemic in here would be bad.
I feel unwell. I suddenly feel weak. And when I eat, I have no appetite. My whole body feels cold. I don't know if I have a disease.
At least I get to wash a little later. A few days ago, this was completely normal. Now it feels like a privilege. Just like a little time to yourself. At least as long as you don't look to the side.
I'm miserable. Everyone's looking at me. It's weird.
Close your eyes for a moment. Then, at the latest, it becomes clear that no one is ever really alone in here. Not for a second. About 1,500 inmates are always by your side. I don't get to choose. This is my new family. And El Presidente somewhere around me, 24/7, no matter what I'm doing. With an average income of $8 per day, the Philippines is one of the poorest countries in the world. Little access to education, malnutrition, extreme population growth that shapes the lives of many people here. Even though most of them are out there in freedom, unlike us here in prison. Little by little, at least, I'm getting to know my fellow inmates better. But how am I supposed to know who I can trust? At least I can give them a chance. Compared to the bathroom, that's in the far corner of the cell. Who wouldn't be humiliated to go to the bathroom in there with everyone watching? In a few days, this will probably be the most normal thing in the world. Flip-flops and slippers. I guess a lot of people out there associate that with freedom. But even in here, I've seen something like free inmates. They enjoy fresh air during the day. Or sports like volleyball or basketball to let off some steam. And they have board games. It doesn't matter that the pieces are just bottle caps. That's all some of us had when we were kids. The big question is still, how do you get privileges like that in here? I guess it's time to find out, even if I don't choose it myself. The cell guard is taking me to a meeting with El Presidente.
Come here. Over here. Two of you.
Our two newcomers. Look over here.
What's your name?
Ronilo Dumagwit.
Rogelio.
Louder.
Ronilo Dumagwit. Where are you from?
From Tupi?
El Presidente has been in South Cotabato jail for 13 years. And he comes from a wealthy family. I don't know if that gives him his special status, but I think he took his chances.
We have rules here, and you have to abide by them. Clear?
Yes, sir.
You respect me and do what I or the marshals tell you, then you will be fine.
So you really only get more wealth in here if you obey him. By the way, his real name is Gletcheriot Pedro. That's what El Presidente means in life out there, in the free world. Officially, he's one of us, a prisoner in custody, but that's the only thing he has in common with me. Because El Presidente has more freedom than anyone else, and he's got money. He probably uses it for all kinds of bartering inside the prison. And even raises chicks in his single luxury cell. He's got everything. Not just his own rice cooker. El Presidente also has his own cell phone, a comfortable bed, and a TV. Even hygiene stuff, and a fan all my own. All things that are unimaginable for me in here. Meanwhile, we're outside getting our hands dirty. I'm on cleaning duty, in a prison in the Philippines, where about 70% of the children grow up without parents. At some point, many try to make money in the big city.
Better out here than locked up inside.
Some become criminals and end up here.
At least I am outdoors and can move around, even if the work is humiliating.
In the process, I learn even more about prison. For example, about the so-called greyhounds. That's what they call the searches. Nobody knows when they take place. The inmates fear them. About once a month, the guards search cells, frisk everyone inside. They're looking for contraband from the outside.
You just stay there. Okay. One at a time. Come on. Get out. Get out. Come on. All of you.
If they catch someone, they punish them. Most of all, the guards look for knives and other weapons. Anything that, at worst,
Come in. Come on in.
can kill anyone in here, even rookies like me. But there are more things. Mobile phones are also in great demand.
It's a cell phone.
One always wonders how involved Del Presidente is in all of this. Which inmate is a friend, or informer, or enemy?
Whose is this? Does it have a password? No. Let's have a look then. No, I love you too.
Don't assume that we're fine now.
Okay, let's rest and sleep now. Kisses.
I'm not quite sure, but I think he lives in this cell.
We're checking it out.
I don't know what kind of punishment you get for something like that. Probably solitary confinement. And the rules are strict. It's not just cell phones that are banned in the cells. The guards also confiscate very simple things, like spoons. I'm almost done scrubbing. Just a quick wash, then it's back to the cell. Slowly, you get used to the routine. The other inmates are looking forward to breaking out soon. Visiting day is coming up. Once a week, relatives and friends are allowed to come. So for once, for many in here, the next few hours almost means something like hope. For a piece of the world, out there somewhere, the rest of the Philippines, a country where about a quarter of the people live in poverty. They say just as many children are malnourished, and our president is still waging his war on drugs. All this makes life pretty complicated. I'm sure some would say that out there is the XXL version of my prison. And most in here that it's a lot worse in jail. Every bit of freedom costs me money. And I don't have much left. Yet I spend it on what hardly anyone in the world would call a luxury. Fresh air and...
How about you give him some room?
Pay for a seat. For some time to think in peace.
Let him sit down. More.
I can't stand it here. I can't stand all these people. Inside I can't breathe, and out here I'm not myself. And it's all because I messed with a cashier.
An argument with a cashier. Money. Her boyfriend. A knife. Offense and defense. That's my version of the story.
I wish none of this had happened. In the future, I would never react like that again. I have a family, and whenever I think about them, I wonder why I fought back. Why I didn't just let them kill me. I have no idea how I'm going to survive here.
As I sit here, visiting hours are beginning. All inmates who have visitors are allowed in their own wing. 3 hours every Saturday. Not me.
Sir, I have 2 new visitors here for registration.
The government calls this day an accommodation for the long wait for trial. With all this, the guards seem stressed. I guess it's hard to really search everything. The cell phones have to come from somewhere in here. The supervisors not only monitor everything very closely, they also frisk every visitor from head to toe. At the latest, now it becomes clear. Without help from outside, life in here is hard to endure. So at least once a week you get better food, new clothes, and much more.
Good morning.
But above all, a piece of normality, even if it's just a quick family picnic behind a fence and walls. Hard to say if I'll ever see it. In any case, I could use the favor of El Presidente. He and his marshals even control the visiting room. I guess you just have to work your way up in here, just like on the outside.
The other bird is sitting on a branch.
Years of pretrial detention without knowing what's coming. Freedom is a precious commodity these days. And seems further away than ever. The only thing you can buy a small piece of that with, besides play by the rules, is simply money. As soon as visitors' day is over, everyone flocks to the little shops in the jail. Fresh water, cigarettes, even phone calls to the outside world are allowed. Better food there, the rich inmates get sleared what it takes to enjoy a piece out there. The poor inmates have no choice but to drink dirty groundwater. While the others leave their money at the barbers. But all that is not so important at this moment. I'm wondering when I'm going to see my family again, if they will even be able to make ends meet.
My family is having a hard time taking care of our crops right now because no one is helping them while I am here in prison. In our neighborhood, no one is helping my family. That's why my wife wants me to get out of here, so that there is someone to help her take care of our crops. We are just poor people. That's why we grow vegetables.
Of course, I hope my wife comes to visit soon. Until then, I can't do anything except enjoy my paid minutes on the bench. Until the clock runs out. I'm back in my cell, vegetating, waiting for the night to fall. Meanwhile, more and more say the country has mutated into a secret police state, fearing being killed. About 1 million drug dealers have turned themselves into the police, voluntarily. Since then, prisons have been bursting at the seams. I'm in the middle of it. And in the morning hours, it's just day 3. One of maybe thousands.
I can get used to it, but the situation is hard to bear. I can't sleep. I can only breathe. When I am out here, I can go where I want, but still here I am trapped in this place. And most of the time I'm inside waiting for nothing.
That's what it's like in the Philippines when you're in custody for attempted murder every day. I wonder what kind of person I'll be when I get out of here. I don't know, and I don't know when that's gonna be. Probably everyone adapts in here sooner or later. Freshmen are almost always outsiders at first, but eventually, most of them become like the others. Then at least you're one of the many. And there's at least a little hope that there's something in here, too, like friendship. In fact, I haven't seen any violence since I've been here. No fights, no stabbings. I guess most of them have only one goal: to hold out until they are eventually out.
It's difficult here. If you're not used to this kind of life in prison, it's really hard. You start thinking dark things very quickly. Just because it's so stressful.
It's mostly the uncertainty that's scary. That I don't know how long I'll be stuck in here, and the daily struggle not to forget the really important things.
I think a lot about how to get out of here. I don't even think about my family anymore. It's always this one thought in my head. Get through it, as soon as possible. I wish I'll just get through this whole thing.
My first days in jail end, and probably the worst time of my life, is just beginning. A life behind bars, in one of the toughest prisons in the world. So slowly, it doesn't matter what time it is, what day it is, maybe even someday, what year. Soon, it might not even matter if they convict me of attempted fashions or not, as long as there's a verdict, and with it, a chance at a future. That's how you live here in the Philippines. South Cotabato Jail. A completely overcrowded prison with 3 times the number of inmates than planned. with guards who have their jobs done mostly by inmates. Where you need money to make ends meet. The favor of the most powerful inmate of all, El Presidente. And where no one has any idea when he'll be out again. In freedom.
A different world, which only the strongest endure.
The last person who tried to escape was caught immediately.
Zero tolerance.
We count the prisoners 5 times a day.
All this behind bars. Gangs. Violence. Drugs. Harassment. A daily survival of the fittest. In the toughest prisons in the world. The Maldives, the ultimate holiday paradise. Turquoise sea and white sandy beaches attract more than 2 million visitors every year from all over the world. The island state in the Indian Ocean is one of the world's top 10 most popular holiday destinations. But on the main island of Mala, there is no sign of paradise. Across just 6 square kilometers live 150,000 people, 1/3 of the total population. Apart from a chronic lack of space, drugs are a major problem. Estimates indicate that every 10th inhabitant of Mali is addicted to drugs, despite the possession of drugs being severely punished within this Muslim island state, for locals and tourists alike. Those caught by the police end up here, on the island of Maafushi. This is where the Maafushi Central Prison is located. A high-security prison, covering an area the size of 10 football pitches, and surrounded by 6-meter-high walls. "800 criminals are incarcerated here under the strictest security measures.
We have all kinds of criminals here. Child molesters, thieves.
Courtyard exercise is a real luxury. Prisoners are virtually locked up around the clock.
Spending the times with nothing to do is the most experience that can,
To keep the prisoners under control, the guards use all-round surveillance and strict rules.
If they refuse, an officer stays till they cut the nails.
Searches are a daily occurrence in this prison.
Drugs and cell phones are the main things we look for.
One of the world's toughest prisons in the middle of a vacation paradise. Mali, capital city of a 1,200 island state. Around 200 of the islands are inhabited. A special boat is used to transport criminals from the various islands to the jail. The boat is better described as a floating high-security prison. It transports new inmates to the prison island every week. The holding cells are located below deck. There are no windows. The walls have extra reinforcement. Escape on the high seas is therefore practically impossible. The journey takes them past vacation resorts and wonderful islands, with the prisoners languishing inside. This is just the beginning. The ship's destination is the Kafu Atoll in the southern part of the Maldives. The island of Maafushi, about 1 kilometer long and 300 meters wide, home to 3,500 people. A third of these work in the prison. The others are imprisoned inside it. The prison is located in the south, surrounded by the sea on 3 sides. Just a few meters from the pier awaits a life behind walls for the new inmates. They will not be seeing the sea again for many years. Before the newcomers are taken to their cells, the guards conduct thorough searches. The greatest threat, smuggled weapons. After the prisoners are found to be clean, they land in their cells. Meanwhile, a new shift begins for the guards at Maafushi prison, the daily routine. Hassan Mohammed has been working in the prison for 10 years. Rule number 1, the guards search each other. Only then may they enter. Even for them, cell phones and cash are strictly forbidden within the prison's walls. Weapons are also not allowed. The guards only carry handcuffs. In theory, a de-escalation measure. In practice, however, the guards are at a disadvantage if things get serious.
When I wake up, I always think about what can happen, which dangerous situations, so that when my shift starts, I'm prepared for everything.
The prison comprises a total of 9 different units. The largest of these, Unit 9, a star-shaped building, houses prisoners with higher security level. Units 5 through 8, which surround it, are for inmates with lower security level, and those soon to be released. The women's wing is located at the other side of the prison. A workshop area is also available, where inmates with good behavior may be allowed to work. Guard Hassan's job is to keep the inmates under control. But first, there is the daily muster of guards. Before each shift, the guards take an oath to the state and to their god. Islam is the Maldives' official religion. The muster call also includes a fingernail inspection. Long nails are frowned upon in Islam and are considered unhygienic. Only those who pass the inspection may start their shift. The guards then disperse to the various tracks. Hassan is senior guard in Unit 9, the unit also known as the Pentagon. The building is designed for maximum surveillance and maximum separation of prisoners. Guards can access all 4 wings within seconds from the centrally located guard room. Each wing is also surrounded by a 5-meter-high wall, meaning zero contact to the outside world. For senior guard Hassan, the morning inspection has begun. 300 men are serving sentences in Unit 9. Relative to its population, the Maldives has the 7th highest incarceration rate in the world.
We have different criminals here. We have murderers, child molesters, thieves, but also those convicted of minor crimes in this unit.
Those ending up here usually have nothing more to lose. The Maldives has, among other things, one of the strictest drug laws in the world. Even possessing small amounts carries up to 15 years imprisonment. 2/3 of inmates in Unit 9 are serving time for drug offenses.
I'm about to do a cell inspection. We always do it at the beginning of the shift. I'll check if all the inmates are there and if everything is okay.
Each of the Pentagon's 4 wings is divided into 2 tracts, each with 10 cells. During the day, inmates are allowed to move around their tracts as they wish. During the inspection, however, everybody must be in their cells. Inspections are carried out 5 times a day by the guards, with the inmates also being counted.
Mohammed Nabil, Shafil Haro.
The inmates are held in shared cells. Up to 5 men share the sparse 20 square meter space. Inmate Asra is in Maafushi prison for drug smuggling.
I've been sentenced for 10 years. Now it's been past 5 years. 6 years is going on now.
Asra has been living in this cell for 5.5 years. To make room during the day, the men move their beds to the side. Each cell has a bathroom of sorts, extremely sparsely equipped. Privacy is only provided by a self-made curtain.
Only this is being provided, this whole wall, concrete sheet, that's just the limit. After this all rounds, all ropes, we build it ourselves.
Shower hose, toilet bowl, a fan, and mattresses. That is all the furniture the prisoners get. The view from the window ends depressingly at a wall that surrounds the entire building and blocks any view to the outside world. Almost everything in the cell has been made by the inmates themselves, with the most basic means.
These are clothes. We paste this rice, common rice, eating rice. We scratch them and uses it as glue.
A desperate attempt to make the bare cell at least a little homey. Clothing, hygiene products, books, and food. Any other possessions are not permitted. Even these are not safe here. Inmates are always stealing from each other.
Every people allowed to get into the other cells from morning 7 to night 9 o'clock. All the place is open. Each and every person can roam around within the area. So while I can't just wait with my items, with my things every time, so provide my items.
Contact with the outside world is rare. Visits are allowed, but for many family members, traveling to the island is too expensive.
Mostly missing is the freedom to I get the information, what's happening within the country. We don't know nothing much. We don't know nothing about what's happening outside. What we can only see here is television that's being provided from the government. We can only see that.
The Maldives are only on rank 79 of 178 in the ranking of press freedom, but TV is the only distraction.
Having too much time with nothing to do, that's the most worst thing that I can experience here. Some people get the chances to have experienced the outside some jobs and they get pay also, but not all the people here get that chance.
Jobs for inmates are scarce, the conditions strict. If, like Azra, you don't have a job, you have no choice but to kill time in your cell. Meanwhile, Senior Guard Hassan uses the morning inspection to gain an overview of the situation and therefore to keep the place under control.
By looking at their faces and behavior, I can notice if something is brewing, if they are being more active than usual.
Everything looks fine today. None of the inmates wants to get on the wrong side of the guards. After all, it's their opinion that counts on who receives certain privileges, like jobs.
All inmates present.
And ensure that none of the inmates escape. Even if one of them manages to escape from the cell tracks, 6-meter-high outer walls then awaits them. And that's not all. The island measures less than a half a square kilometer. There are few opportunities to hide here. The only way to escape is by boat or seaplane. It's 4 kilometers to the next inhabited island, too far to swim. The main island of Male is almost 30 kilometers away, and there are no places there to hide either. The island measures just 6 square kilometers. Escaped prisoners have managed to evade capture only once. Whether they actually made it or drowned while escaping, no one knows. The morning inspection is over. During the day, inmates are allowed to move around their tracks as they wish, but they remain under surveillance. At Maafushi prison, guards use all-round surveillance to keep the prison under control. Every corner of the building, even the roof, is monitored by cameras. Hassan and his colleagues use huge monitors to track every movement of the prisoners, and they react immediately in the event of problems.
We quickly caught the last person who tried to escape. The islands are so small, it's easy to find them again.
It's not only the Pentagon that is well monitored. There are a total of over 300 cameras around the prison grounds. Behind an inconspicuous door is the heart of the surveillance system. 2 guards scan camera transmissions here around the clock. To maintain maximum concentration, they swap every 3 hours, just like in an airport tower.
We observe the prisoners and also the guards, basically everything, and see if there's anything inappropriate going on.
The outside walls are under special surveillance too. People on the outside keep throwing over drugs and cell phones. One moment, everything might seem peaceful, but things can change in an instant. Meanwhile, in the Pentagon, senior guard Hassan is supervising the workers. There is strict criteria on getting a job. No unusual behavior, psychologically sound, and no crime involving violent behavior. Jobs are also subject to maximum security measures. Before inmates are allowed to enter the workshops, they are searched twice. They must have absolutely nothing on their person. Too great is the risk of them smuggling things in or out, which they can then use to trade or threaten other inmates, and more. The prison's own plant nursery. The plants are sold on the island. There's also a carpentry workshop. The inmates even handle dangerous tools there, always under close supervision, of course. One of the workers is 35-year-old Samir, sentenced for drug smuggling to life in prison. In the Maldives, life means 25 years.
It is great to work here. I love to study and learn new things, so I am happy. Though there are certain difficulties we face at times. We try to resolve it together with the duty officers.
Samir has been incarcerated here for 2 years. Thanks to good behavior, he's been allowed to work here for 8 months. An absolute privilege for him.
It's not easy being in prison. It's hard to cope. Sometimes you get support, sometimes you don't. I hope, and I am patient, that things will get better.
Also because he earns money through the job. And earning money in here is really important, because the prison itself provides only the bare necessities.
We get 30 rupiah a day, which amounts to 900 a month. I keep half for myself and send the other half to my family.
The equivalent of roughly $60 a month. Money that inmates can use to buy luxuries like food, clothing, and even cigarettes. Today is Kiosk Day. Once a week, Maafushi prison inmates are allowed to shop. But even the kiosk items have to be ordered in advance by the inmates.
When family transfers money to inmate accounts, they can purchase items like food, drinks, or cosmetics, such as lotions, etc., at the store.
It is the highlight of the week for the inmates, at least for those who have money, in one of the toughest prisons in the world.
Occasionally, there is trouble. For example, when things are not available.
A pack of cookies costs the equivalent of $1, and a pack of cigarettes costs $6. Inmates are allowed to spend $130 a month. More than that is not permitted. This is the prison's way of preventing trading among inmates. Trading creates hierarchies, which soon end in violence. Meanwhile, at the other end of the prison, lunch is being prepared for the 800 inmates. This is not a job for the prisoners themselves. The fear of weapons and drugs being smuggled into the prison is too great. There are 3 meals and 2 snacks a day, prepared according to the principle of cheap as possible. Food is generally expensive in the Maldives. Everything must be imported. The prison spends the equivalent of just $4.80 per day per inmate. Guards then deliver the food to the different tracts. Everything gets rechecked outside the tract because, despite close monitoring, drugs and cell phones keep getting into the jail. Concealed within the food is one possibility. Even at mealtimes, maximum separation of inmates applies. Inmates are not permitted to leave their cell tracts. Each block has a mess room. Hygiene standards are the same in all of them. Inmates like Azra don't have much choice. Either they eat here or segregated in their cells. Either way, the choice is minimal.
Fridays and Monday, at afternoon we'll be having chicken, then others potato, curry, fish curry.
Azra takes only some rice, even though he is hungry.
The food's not good, the taste. That's why we gather, with our items, we make our own dishes sometimes, and we have for our meals.
Asra is one of the lucky ones who receives money from his family. Purchase canned tuna, pure luxury in this jail.
That's like 22 rupiah.
Equivalent to $1.50. A lot of money behind bars. The can then has to last several days. The majority of inmates at Maafushi prison are male, but there is a separate wing for women. Unit 1, located at the far end of the prison. Men are strictly forbidden to enter. Just 36 women are incarcerated here. Inmate Nazaha has been here the longest of all. She has been sentenced to life imprisonment for murdering her husband. Every day has been the same for her for more than 10 years.
At morning when we wake up at 5 o'clock, it will be locked. The door will be open at 7 o'clock. At that time, the breakfast will come. I take the breakfast and I get ready for the cell inspection.
The female guards get the women to clean and scrub their cells every day. The reason? Disease. It spreads rapidly. Strict hygiene and daily inspections are the only preventive measures. Here, too, the guards reduce possessions to a minimum. Books, hygiene products, clothes, food from the kiosk, and plastic dishes. The inmates are not allowed more. The guard, Siza, starts her inspection rounds at the same time every day. Nazaha's cell is first.
We deliver forms to the inmates and make the cell inspection. We check if the cell is clean and tidy. If they have cut their fingernails, are wearing appropriate clothing. If there is any issue, we request them to correct it and note it in the occurrence book.
In the female wing, a lot of emphasis is placed on observing Islamic rules. Long fingernails are considered unclean. The guards therefore check nails every day.
If they refuse, an officer stays till they cut the nails.
Afterwards, Guard Siza checks every corner of the cell. The inmates are not allowed to move while she is doing this. What seems on the face of it to be an exercise of power is, in the guard's view, intended to help the women.
The reason for checking their fingernails and conducting inspection is to instill good habits and behavior, which they will keep practicing, even after their release from prison. Cutting fingernails and cleanliness is also essential in our religion.
After the inspection, the main thing is monotony. Nazaha spends most of the day watching TV and waiting.
We're waiting for them to open the doors.
Combined with a longing to finally see daylight, surrounded by a paradise that inmates can only dream of. Just a few meters away, there is a completely different world. Around the prison on the beaches, vacationers enjoy the sun and the sea. Inmates at Maafushi prison never get to glimpse any of this, usually for decades. Their only ray of hope, 1.5 hours of courtyard exercise per day.
For security reasons, inmates are only allowed to enter the courtyard in small groups at a time, 20 people maximum.
Today, there are only Azra and 4 other inmates. The smaller the group, the better the control the guards have over what goes on in the courtyard. Even courtyard exercise requires maximum security. Two doors separate the courtyard from the cell tract. The courtyard itself is a cheerless area surrounded by a 5-meter-high wall. The sea is just a few meters away, but out of sight for the inmates. A rusty basketball hoop also fails to provide a distraction because there is no ball.
The items for recreation, it also we have to purchase from ourselves. We have to buy it. If we want a ball, if we have to buy it from the shop. If not, that option is not there for every people.
Azra and the others have no other option than to walk around in circles, watched by countless cameras.
It's been quite a long period here in the for sentence, like 5 years, 6 years. So quite a long period. We come out, we stress-free our times by doing this recreation. Coming out of the cell, this is the moment, like you were mentioning, just for us to feel that freedom for a little moment.
And this will remain the only moment of freedom for Azra for many years to come. He will have to serve his full sentence of 10 years in prison. There is zero chance of him being released earlier.
Twice I was interviewed, but that chance also I didn't get. I don't get any chance of to go out as a smuggler. I carry things into the country. That's why I think I'm not getting chances.
The procedure for getting released earlier is quite tough. Besides impeccable behavior, the inmates have to pass several steps, like psychiatric evaluation, record clearance from the police, and an interview by the parole board. Just a few meters away in the women's prison, it's finally courtyard time. The first thing the women have to do every day is to put their mattresses in the sun. Another hygiene measure. While most of the women enjoy courtyard exercise, Nazaha uses the time outside the cell to help another inmate.
I'm helping an inmate to fill up home.
Many women here in prison come from very simple families and have never learned to read and write properly. A basic form can be too much for them.
My case is different, and Alhamdulillah, my parents taught me how to write. I've studied, so I think it's my obligation to help them, to teach them, and they seek for it from me. Anybody who comes and asks for help, I give it. My dad is like that too, that's why.
After just 1.5 hours, the women have to go back to their cells. Nazaha reads a book to distract her from having gloomy thoughts. Thoughts about why. She claims she stabbed her husband in self-defense after he mistreated her, but the court didn't believe her and convicted her of murder. She now seems to have come to terms with her fate.
Sometimes it's difficult to sleep, and here I'm get rehabilitated, so I know how to manage myself now. I'm taking this positively because I've been here a long time, and I guess sooner or later the time will come. God have given me health, so I still can achieve. There's a purpose me being here, so there's a lot I can achieve.
Nazaha hopes for an early release on good behavior, even if that's virtually impossible. For now, however, she's alone again with her thoughts until the early evening. Then the women will be allowed into the courtyard for a second time. Unlike for the male inmates, they continue to languish in their cells. 6 p.m. A shift change is due at the Pentagon. Guards here work on a 3-shift system.
Before the end of our shift and the start of the next one, we check if the locks are in place or if there are any issues. If there are any problems, we warn them. If they ignore our warnings and their behavior gets worse, then we take them out of the cells and change the cell tract.
For the inmates, this means they lose their place in the hierarchy, and they have to fight their way back up from the bottom in the new wing. After half an hour, Hassan has completed his final inspection for the day.
All okay. All prisoners are safely locked up and behaving quietly. No incidents.
This now means that the guards can finally call it a day. But Hassan won't be traveling home. The head guard and many of his colleagues also live in the prison, only separated from the criminals by a wall.
Here is my accommodation. This is where I live along with other officers from more distant islands.
The islands of the Maldives cover around 100,000 square kilometers. It can take a full day's boat ride to reach the outer islands. Many guards, like Hassan, have no choice but to live in the prison. Their quarters are not much better than the prisoners' cells, but Hassan and his colleagues don't have much choice. Housing on the island is scarce and expensive. Accommodation in the prison is free, and being a guard is a well-paid job.
The most important thing is that I can visit my family 4 to 5 times a year.
For 10 months of the year, a life behind bars too, so to speak. The guards only get to spend 2 months with their families. – 7 p.m. is nightfall. Few guards will have slept well. A major search is scheduled for today. The objective is to stop the smuggling of drugs and cell phones. 8 in the morning. The prison's special unit prepares for the cell search. Protective equipment and armament is mandatory. No one knows how the inmates will react. Mahdi Rifat, the unit head, briefs his men about the mission.
Bodea and Yanad enter cell 2 from the left. Tutur and Munaat go to the 3rd. The rest of you are going to the 4th.
Then it starts. The men's target, Unit 7. The place for the raid is chosen at random shortly before, because the inmates should not be able to be forewarned. Once the men are in the tract, everything happens quickly. Under no circumstances should inmates have the chance to hide anything.
We first secure all the cells. This is for our own safety. There are only 10 of us, and it's a wide open area here.
After the situation is under control, the chosen cell is entered. The inmates have to look on in handcuffs while the search takes place. Anyone caught with drugs in prison will end up in court again and receive another 10 to 15 years.
All of you, watch what we are doing. If we find anything, we will question you about it. You may say something if it doesn't belong to you. Understood?
The search now starts. The men are extremely thorough. They know how creative prisoners can be at hiding contraband.
We are looking for drugs and cell phones.
The inmates have to watch as the special unit tears apart their cell. And things that have been painstakingly created get destroyed if necessary.
They're good at hiding things, like this razor blade here, inside makeshift constructions. And to check them, I have to break things.
Inmates could build a weapon with a razor blade and use it to attack other inmates, or worse, a guard. 30 minutes later, the search is over. Finally, the inmates are checked. They could have something hidden in their clothes.
The search went well. Sometimes the prisoners get aggressive, but today, everything stayed peaceful.
Even if no drugs were found this time, the inmates clearly got the message that it isn't safe to have them. At the other end of the prison, in the female wing, the prisoners are unaware of all this. They sit in their cells waiting for courtyard exercise.
Attention all prisoners and remanded persons.
Nazaha has organized a volleyball match among the women for today.
They're just playing it to do some exercise.
None of the women can really play, but that doesn't matter to them. They simply enjoy the moment, even if it is very short. Nazaha keeps thinking about her family and the time after prison, whenever it comes.
First, I have to see the outside world. I don't know how it is now. It's been a decade, so it will become a lot changed. I have to discuss everything with my parents. I don't get much time. Communication is not that well, and my kid is now 13 years, so I have to talk him also and finalize the things.
But reality quickly catches up with Nazaha again. Courtyard exercise is over. The prisoners have to go back to their cells. The next inspection is scheduled.
We count the inmates 5 times a day, at 4 p.m. in the evening, 9 p.m. at night, at midnight, 7 a.m. in the morning, and at 8 a.m. So far, no prisoner has been able to escape.
Maximum control for the guards means, for the prisoners, maximum loneliness. They'll only be able to leave their cells again tomorrow, and only for a short time. While inmates at Maafushi prison languish in isolation in their cells, the fun is just beginning for the tourists. As night falls, the bars and restaurants begin to fill up. There is an atmosphere of fun and partying everywhere. But just a few meters away, the prison seems deserted. For the men in the Pentagon, the cells are about to be locked. Smuggler Asra and his cellmates prepare their cell for the night, under the strict supervision of the guards.
Now we are just getting ready to clean up our cell. We all clean up the cell around 8:30.
Each night, all inmates must help in scrubbing down the cells. Officially, it's a hygiene measure, but also an extra punishment. Anyone refusing to comply will be subject to sanctions. Shortly after 9 p.m., the cells are locked, which also means the loss of the last bit of freedom that the inmates have.
Come on, into your cell.
From now on, the men remain locked in their cells until 7 in the morning. They go reluctantly into their cells. For now, the worst part of the day begins for them. 5 people crammed into 20 square meters, without any way to forget about their plight.
Mostly spending times reading books and getting information and thinking what can I be of coming days. If I get a chance to come out and have a good life, there will be many things I will be changing, and many behaviors also I need to change for myself.
However, it will be a long time before that happens for Azra. A time of boredom and monotony. His release is not expected for another 4.5 years, as long as he doesn't do anything wrong in prison. Until then, the guards will be locking the cell doors day after day. There is not a moment's peace in the prison. The criminals sit well secured behind thick doors, sealed off from the outside world. And watched by a myriad of cameras. Maafushi prison in the Maldives, a prison in the middle of a paradise. A paradise that the prisoners will not experience for years while serving time in one of the toughest prisons in the world. A different world with its own rules.
Absolutely no privacy here.
Zero tolerance.
Prisoners remain in isolation for 1 week to a month.
All this behind bars. Gangs. Violence. Drugs. Harassment. A daily survival of the fittest. In the toughest prisons in the world. Taichung, a mega metropolis in the west of Taiwan. The small island state is considered one of the safest countries in the world. Nevertheless, more people are behind bars here than in much larger countries, such as Germany, Spain, or Italy. The reason? drugs. Huge quantities of drugs enter the country every year via the country's ports. In 2022 alone, police confiscated some 10 tons of heroin, cocaine, and amphetamines. The Chinese drug mafia uses the island state for transit. Anyone caught with drugs ends up here in Taichung prison. It's a high-security bunker with space for nearly 5,000 criminals. Escape from here is impossible. Monotony, confinement, and around-the-clock video surveillance everywhere dictate the lives of the inmates. Taichung Prison is one of the world's toughest prisons. 7 o'clock in the morning is when the head guard, Li Shichang, begins his shift. He has been providing security in Taiwan's largest prison for 30 years.
As every morning, I hope that today will be a quiet day. And I hope that there will be no problems and no security incidents.
After all, the country's most dangerous criminals are imprisoned here. Over 100 life sentences alone, and more than 1,000 prisoners are serving sentences of 20 years or more. The security measures are particularly tight.
This is now the second security check.
This consists of a passage detector, which spots weapons, metal, and cell phones, as well as a further check by security officers. Only those who are absolutely clean are allowed into the prison. The guards work in 3 shifts. During the day shift, 210 guards are responsible for the current 4,500 prisoners.
Attention! Roll call.
The guards are now deployed to the various cell blocks. The prison has a total of 6 cell blocks. Each block is a small prison of its own, which the inmates hardly ever leave. In Unit Shao, there are almost 500 prisoners taking part in special rehabilitation programs. Next to it, Unit I, the largest block in the mega prison with 1,100 inmates. And Unit Yi, for prisoners with medium to long sentences. Unit Xing is a block where mainly drug criminals are held. The prison's isolation wing is also located here. Unit Ren, with 1,000 prisoners, the second largest block. Unit Chang, a block exclusively for HIV-infected prisoners. Next to it is the prison hospital. At the other end of the 200,000 square meter mega prison is the kitchen. 15,000 meals are prepared here daily. Everyday life in Taiwan's toughest prison is strictly timed. Unit Xing is the drug wing. 7:15 sharp, the prisoners are given their breakfast. Soy milk and rice rolls. A nutritious and, above all, inexpensive meal. Food is eaten in the cell, on the floor. There is no table. 8 prisoners are housed here in just under 20 square meters. One of them is Huang, prisoner 5523, sentenced to 11 years for amphetamine trafficking.
You get used to cramped conditions. Sometimes the cells are even more crowded. Then it gets really uncomfortable. But it's okay as it is now.
On average, each prisoner has just 2 square meters of space. There are beds only for those at the top of the cell hierarchy. The rest have to sleep on mats on the floor. Even with windows and a fan, the air in the cells is stifling and stuffy.
I hope to get out early. I'll find out next month.
After breakfast, cleaning is compulsory. This is to prevent pests and diseases from spreading among the prisoners. The cell's toilet also serves as a sink, shower, and bathroom for the men. Huang and his cellmates stock up on water. This is because the water is turned on only twice a day for 2 hours.
At the beginning, it's extremely difficult to learn the ropes. You have to adapt. That took a long time for me. I compare life here to that of a soldier. It's a bit like the military. You just work. But the worst thing is that you have no privacy.
Not only are the prisoners in close quarters with their cellmates around the clock, but they're also permanently exposed to the watchful eye of the guards. Each cell is under constant camera surveillance.
There is no place here where you are not observed. That is sometimes very difficult, especially when I'm in a bad mood or sad. Writing helps me. I write letters to my family, my brother, and my girlfriend too.
The orange vest means Huang is cell boss. This helps him to earn the guards' favor, but it doesn't make him any friends. Nearly half of all prisoners here have been convicted of drug trafficking or possession. This also affects the work of head guard Li Shijiang.
In contrast to the past, the prisoners have changed. They're more educated and intelligent and behave accordingly. But that doesn't make them harmless. They're still criminals, but in a different way, rather sneaky.
For the guards, this means always being vigilant.
There are no special events planned for today. Please take good care of yourself, make sure you have your baton with you, and don't hesitate to use it in an emergency. Everything all right? Have a good day.
The 600 prisoners in the block are about to go to work. Tension among the guards is rising.
The most dangerous moment is now, when the prisoners go to work. We all have to be in position and remain vigilant. The prisoners have a lot of time to think during the night. You never know what they'll be like in the morning. It's always possible that someone will suddenly become mentally unstable and flip out. That's why we have to be particularly vigilant now, so there's no incident when the cells are all open.
To keep the situation under control, the guards let the prisoners out of the cells one by one, and only in small groups. Each of the prison's 6 blocks is designed in such a way that prisoners do not have to leave it. The workplaces, known as factories, are located within the blocks. Work is compulsory for everyone in Taichung prison. Gluing bags and plugging cables is supposed to give the prisoners a daily structure and prepare them for a regular life after prison. They are paid just $30 a month.
When the prisoners work in the factories, we rarely have problems. The inmates usually behave well, especially towards me. After all, I'm the one who makes sure they're doing well. I help them if they have problems. However, they need to behave respectfully. If they don't, they face the consequences.
The prison works with what is known as progressive correctional treatment. This means that prisoners are divided into 4 levels. The better a prisoner behaves, the higher their level. And this determines, for example, how many packs of cigarettes a prisoner can buy and how often he is allowed to have visitors. The most important thing, however, is that the length of imprisonment is reduced with each level obtained. For most prisoners, this is a good reason to cause as little trouble as possible. The laws in Taiwan are strict. There are no exceptions. Prisoner 1971 also had to learn this. He used to be a high-ranking military officer. Now he is serving 5 years in prison.
How you fare here always depends on your performance and on yourself. I just hope that I can spend time with my family again soon. I'm already 70 years old and my wife is also in her 60s. I long to be by her side again. I want to travel with my wife as soon as possible.
He doesn't want to talk about why he is here. He doesn't want to give his name either. He is too ashamed for being in prison.
At the beginning, I was terrified of prison. I had imagined it would be much worse. When I arrived here, it wasn't like what I thought. There was nothing bad, no abuse or anything. You're just locked up.
He still has around 3 years to go before he, with good guidance, can be with his family again. Those who behave impeccably can apply for a place in Unit Chao. Instead of doing dull and monotonous work, prisoners here take part in art programs. One of them is 53-year-old Lai. He used to have his own nightclub. He also dealt drugs there until the police caught him and arrested him. He has been in Taichung prison for 9 years, but previously did time in another prison.
I've always loved painting, and then I took the chance and applied for this program. And since I have a talent for it, they took me on. I like being here in the workshop. I enjoy it, and I worked hard for the entrance test.
For him, working in the art workshop is a kind of escape from harsh reality.
When I paint, I can forget. It's very liberating. I dive into another world and forget where I am at the moment.
Prisoners are in the workshop from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Here, too, everything is designed so that they don't have to leave the room for anything. Laundry, toilets, showers, everything is done on site. Under the watchful eye of the cameras and guards, of course. They aim to identify problems before a situation has a chance to escalate.
A good relationship with the prisoners is important to us. We try to get to know them as well as possible and understand how they think, how they feel. That way we can better recognize when something is wrong or something is bothering them. Each month, we also have one-to-one meetings with them. There they can tell us everything they don't want others to hear.
Like informing on other inmates and thereby earn points. But these preventive measures don't always help. In 2015, there was a hostage situation in another Taiwanese prison that ended in 6 deaths. Since then, guards have been even more cautious here, too.
Each of us has a baton on our person. We use it to protect ourselves, and if a person behaves violently, we also have pepper spray. In an emergency, there's also an alarm button at the back. We set off the alarm and go outside and lock the door behind us.
Anyone who causes trouble ends up here, in the isolation wing.
This is one of the isolation cells. Depending on what the prisoners have done, they stay here for between a week and 1 month.
1 window, 1 toilet, and otherwise bare tiled walls. That's what awaits all troublemakers in prison. And of course, the cells here are also under round-the-clock camera surveillance.
As you can see up there, we give the prisoners tasks to do during their time in isolation. They are given books to read. That calms them down. They can sit down or lie down and read.
It's a very effective treatment. Most prisoners only end up here once. Meanwhile, the prison kitchen is working at full speed to feed the 4,500 inmates. There is even an in-house bakery. Jobs here are in high demand. Here, prisoners receive up to 300 euros a month, 10 times as much as the factory workers. Inmate Huang has been working in the bakery for 4 years and has now worked his way up to foreman.
I make sure everyone is working properly. We have a set number of baked goods we need to meet every day. If my instructions are not followed, I go to our supervisor and he takes care of it. It's my job to check on the others. But if I happen to miss something, someone else sees it, they tell me, and then I report it. That's how the system works here.
From drug dealer to informer for the guards. It's a life Huang would never have dreamt of in the past.
So basically, I used to do jobs for the mafia all the time. It wasn't difficult to get in, but I didn't do anything bad. I didn't kill anyone or anything like that. It was more along the lines of collecting debts or protection money. You know, I was young and I hung out with them. I drove their cars and stuff.
But Huang has now said goodbye to his old life, or so he claims.
I'm not really worried about slipping back into the scene. It's the first time I've ended up in prison, and they've locked me up for such a long time. I've come to appreciate the value of freedom. I definitely don't want to end up here again.
He is currently waiting for the decision on whether he will be released early for good behavior. The chances are 50-50. One floor below, in the kitchen, lunch is being prepared. Every day, 15,000 meals are prepared here from 1.7 tons of food. The processes in the large kitchen are strictly regulated. Every meal has to taste exactly the same. Otherwise, it would quickly lead to disputes among the prisoners. The prison spends around $2 per inmate per day on food. The meals are kept fairly simple. The coveted kitchen jobs are only available to those who are not serving time for a violent crime and who have done absolutely nothing wrong in prison.
We're in a prison and these knives present a big risk. We keep them in a separate room so that no other prisoners are around when we open the cupboard. Otherwise, someone could try to take one of the knives and attack other inmates with it.
To prevent such situations, prisoners are not allowed to bring the knives to the workstations themselves. This task is always carried out by one of the guards. The system has been successful. There has yet to be a safety incident in the kitchen here. Just before 12, lunch is ready. The workers now deliver it to the various blocks. There are no dining halls. The prisoners eat at their workstations, as do Lai and the others in the art workshop. Nobody has to go hungry here. However, the question of taste elicits a collective laugh.
We have no choice. We have to eat what we're given. If I could choose, I'd like a burger, fried chicken, or something else Western.
No wonder. after more than 10 years in prison. The other prisoners seem to view things similarly. Almost half of the food is left over. If you're lucky, you have friends or relatives nearby who regularly bring food from outside. Relatives are allowed to drop off 2 kilograms of food per day at the visitor center. Many families take advantage of this opportunity. On average, a further 800 kilograms of food are collected every day. Time and again, however, friends or family try to smuggle illegal items into prison this way. Before the food reaches the prisoners, then Yun Sen and his colleagues search it thoroughly.
We look for prohibited items, such as drugs, metal objects, really anything made of metal, including keys or lighters. All types of powder are also particularly suspicious, as these are usually drugs.
Cakes or rolls are particularly suitable for hiding things in.
Today, for example, I found this one pill in a cookie. We confiscated it immediately, of course. We still have to find out exactly what it is.
Every fine means trouble, both for the prisoner and the person who delivered the parcel.
Everyone who drops something off must leave their address, telephone number and name, so we know exactly who has dropped off the items. If we find something somewhere, the person will be held accountable. This is a serious offense.
In the worst-case scenario, this also means prison. Officers then send the controlled food to the prisoners. Prisoners who have no family or friends nearby can buy supplies in the prison store. Here they can order almost anything, from toiletries, fruit, and writing materials, to ready-made meals and sweets.
In here, everyone has to buy their own things. If someone has no money at all, they can apply for support. But many people are too ashamed to even do that.
A pack of toilet paper costs 50 cents, toothpaste $1. A pack of apples, on the other hand, costs $7. Most people, therefore, limit themselves to the bare essentials. Lai is one of the lucky ones who can order regularly from the store.
My family's sent me money. My family sends me a fixed amount of 5,000 yuan every month. And I can use the 5,000 yuan for my daily needs. Sometimes I also save for more expensive things.
It amounts to the equivalent of $150. It's a lot of money in prison. That's why Lai often orders things for his cellmates, like toothpaste. Early afternoon. Head guard Li Shizhang is on patrol in his block. He makes the rounds twice a day, always at different times. The inmates should never be sure of their fate. The count comes to 104 prisoners.
We count the prisoners several times a day. This is very important so that we can keep an overview. That way we can see immediately if someone is missing. And we can then react quickly.
And to deal with an escape attempt within the prison walls, if possible. Li Shicheng seizes the moment for another inspection. The prisoner's cigarettes are locked away in a cupboard and are only handed out on request.
Sometimes the prisoners take the boxes and hide things in them. For example, lighters, blades, or medication.
This time, he found nothing. The head guard is satisfied.
Everything is in order here.
At least for the moment. The next inspection round will follow in 2 hours. The prison mainly relies on cameras to monitor the inmates. Over 1,000 of them are distributed around the grounds, in the factories, and in the cells. The guards can access all cameras from the monitoring center. Tong Shao is the prison's head of security.
We can see all areas of the prison from here. Every camera. We have extra screens for particularly vulnerable areas. Our main task is to use video surveillance to identify unusual situations. If we notice something suspicious, we immediately send the people there to deal with it.
The same applies here. Recognize situations and defuse them before disaster strikes.
We have a mixture of video surveillance, surveillance by the guards, and fairly thick walls and bars. It's almost insurmountable. The prisoners see all this and realize that escape is actually pointless. And at the latest, it becomes very clear once they're standing in front of the outer wall.
The prison wall is 1.2 kilometers long and surrounds the entire compound. In front of it is a massive wire fence and the 5-meter-wide so-called no man's land. If someone enters no man's land, an alarm is immediately triggered. Should someone manage to bypass this alarm, the outer wall is waiting for them. It's 7 meters high, with several rows of barbed wire fed with high voltage current. So far, no one has managed to get to the other side. Late afternoon. Dinner is served at 4 p.m. It's the last meal of the day for the prisoners. After eating, they have to return to their cramped cells.
The cell and the workshop here are actually 2 different worlds. In the cell, you can do practically nothing except rest and sleep. Here, on the other hand, there's plenty of space. We can be creative and even do sports.
That's why none of the men are in a particular hurry. They take their time tidying up their things. Shortly before 5, Guard Huang collects the tools.
When we hand out the knives, we count the blades, and when we return them, there have to be just as many as when we handed them out. If one of the blades is missing, we confront the prisoner. If he claims to not know where it is, we look for it until it turns up. And until then, no one leaves the room.
5 p.m. It's time for cell lockup. The prisoners are counted once again. To get prisoners safely back to their cells, Huang Shen receives help from 2 colleagues.
You can go outside.
Guards randomly search some of the prisoners. After all, with a little creativity, there are lots of things in the art workshop that could easily be used to make a weapon. Passing through the corridors of the block towards the cells. Lai and the other prisoners have not been out in the open for a minute today, and they won't be able to either. They will spend the next 15 hours in their cells. Lai shares an 8-square-meter cell with 3 other prisoners. Just enough space for the toilet and for the men to lie down. A tiny television and a few books are the only distraction from harsh reality.
In the beginning, I thought a lot about my old life outside and about my family. I brooded about my future. I've been here for 9 years now, and I've stopped thinking too much. Otherwise, I just go crazy. As long as I don't think about it, it's bearable. Prison changes you. I've learned how to behave in here. Every minute of the day.
His most valuable possession is a photo album with pictures of family and friends. And a photo of himself from before prison is a kind of reminder of how things used to be.
Actually, I only have good ratings from the wardens, and I've now been promoted to level 2. That means I'm allowed to have visitors at least twice a week. Once a month, my little brother brings our mother here. She's old now. Otherwise, I get a lot of visits from friends.
His greatest wish is to get out of here while his mother is still alive.
Attention. 1056.
Here.
5161.
Here.
2060.
Here.
2041.
Here.
The guards check once again to make sure every prisoner is really in his cell. Then it's time for Wang Chen and his colleagues to call it a day. The night shift takes over. Silence returns to Taiwan's toughest prison. A few kilometers further into the city, however, nightlife is just getting started. This is exactly where many of the prisoners used to sell their drugs. While people celebrate in the streets of Taichung, the prison seems deserted. Lai has been in prison the longest and therefore has the privilege of one of the 2 beds. It's his own little kingdom. The newcomers, on the other hand, have to sleep on the floor.
Time passes very slowly in the cell. We try to distract ourselves by reading and watching TV.
It's a distraction from the thoughts of what his life would be like now if the police hadn't caught him.
I really don't sleep very well here, but I'm used to it.
The guards count the prisoners one last time for the day. The lights are switched off at 9 p.m. At least some of them. It is never completely dark in the cells. The inmates have to sleep with the lights on. The reason? The surveillance cameras. In the monitoring center, special concentration is required during the night. This is when the risk of an escape is at its highest. 3 guards keep an eye on the screens at the same time. However, head of security Tong Shao does not rely entirely on technology. He personally checks the situation in each block several times a night.
Everything's fine, sir. Nothing unusual.
Any incidents?
No.
Now, after 10 p.m., it's bedtime. The prisoners are no longer allowed to walk around, watch TV, or read.
As you can see, on the monitors, most people are already asleep. We make sure that everything is really quiet. People aren't moving around too much. If we do notice anything, our colleagues immediately go to the cell in question to sort it out and restore the calm.
For the prisoners, this means total surveillance, even while they sleep. Tong walks from block to block. His tour lasts half an hour.
Everything is fine. Nothing out of the ordinary. But you can never assume it will stay that way. That's why I'm doing another round in a few hours to make sure there are no incidents.
For this night at least, it stays that way. A few days later, today is a special day for inmate Lai and the others from his work group. The weekly yard walk is about to begin. Today, they will be out in the open for the first time in a week and feel the sun on their skin. But first, it's off to the workshop. Lai is simply happy to be out of his cell.
It feels good to be out here. I'm immediately in a much better mood, simply because I can be in a different space. I'm almost, how shall I put it, cheerful.
The mere thought of going outside lifts the spirits of all the prisoners. After lunch, they finally get to go out into the yard. Once a week, each working group is allowed a yard walk. This means that exactly once a week they have the opportunity to be out in the open air and feel the warmth of the sun's rays. Most of them use the time to at least briefly exercise under the watchful eyes of the guards and, of course, the cameras. Security Chief Tong Shao takes advantage of the prisoner's absence to conduct a cell search.
We are mainly looking for objects that could compromise or endanger our safety. For example, homemade weapons with which the prisoners could injure themselves, other prisoners, or us.
The guards search several cells every day. They're only selected shortly beforehand. That way no guard can warn the inmates.
Please check your equipment. You can start now.
The guards are searching a total of 10 cells today. There are no taboos. Every corner of the cell is thoroughly searched. After all, the safety of the guards is also at stake.
Some of the prisoners take toothbrushes, for example, and sharpen them. This turns them into a dangerous weapon, and that's exactly the kind of thing we expect to find today. Our main goal is to find these things to ensure everyone's safety.
In addition to homemade weapons, they also search for medicines, drugs, cigarettes, and cell phones. To do this, they also look in rather unsavory places.
I have to think from the prisoner's perspective. It's not easy to say where I would hide my things if I were locked up in here. I think I would use the toilet area. Some of them might think that this area is too disgusting and that we might not look too hard there. But these are the exact places we need to look extra hard.
This time, the search turns up empty. The bathroom is clean, but his colleague does discover something: aluminum foil.
This doesn't belong in a cell.
Even if aluminum foil looks harmless, with the foil in a battery, you could easily start a fire. After half an hour, the search is over.
Please finish up. Take all the found items to the main room.
The hall is not exactly large. In addition to the aluminum foil, the guards also found a rubber band, a wooden board, and batteries. There was no trace of homemade weapons.
There are very few prohibited items found in this prison. That's because we do these searches every day. Today, it was relatively boring, but this boring job is our only way of ensuring security and order in our prison.
The owners of the items will be dealt with later. They will be downgraded in the rating system. Meanwhile, the prisoners enjoy the rare opportunity to take part in sport activities in the open air.
I enjoy being out in the sun, running, doing sport, sweating a lot. I can totally relax in the process.
And every time he does, he realizes how prison has changed his life.
I didn't used to think about what I was doing. I was young and I didn't really care about anything. I had no sense of responsibility towards my family. When I went to prison, that all changed. I was pretty shocked. I've changed a lot over the course of my time here. I've become a different person, so to speak.
After just 40 minutes, the time in the yard is over. It's back to the workshop. Lai's life will look like this for at least another 2 years. Only then will he have the opportunity to be released on parole early.
My plan is to hold an exhibition while I'm still in prison, so that people can get to know me, and I can open my own small studio later on. For the last 2 years, I've been working on paintings that are suitable for an exhibition, paintings that I would like to exhibit later in my own studio. I'm trying to prepare myself as well as possible for the future.
His chances of making his dream come true are not all bad. He has already won several prizes with his paintings. And Huang already has plans for the time after prison.
I do think I have a good chance of finding my way again once I'm out of here. I've been working here for more than 4 years, and I've gained a lot of experience. I've learned many different things here. My plan is to open my own small bakery at home and then market my products online.
With a bit of luck, he will be allowed out in just a few months. While inmates dream of a life of freedom, Head of Security Tom would not trade his job for anything. He wants to run a prison himself one day. Until then, he will continue to provide security in Taichung prison, one of the world's toughest prisons.